Good morning, everyone. You are welcome to Distinction webinar series. And today I'm excited to have a very special guest to discuss an interesting topic that many of you, I believe, are founders here and will find it very, very educative and insightful. Today we are talking about stop running the business, start scaling it. How CEOs build companies that work without them. Once again, you are welcome to this Distinction webinar series. Before we get started, I would like to make a quick background on today's topic. As a founder, I always believed in building. I started programming at a very young age, and that bias toward action has shaped much of my journey. And just like me, many founders here, we are wired to move fast, solve problems, and work relentlessly. In the early days of FlexiSelf, I was deeply involved in almost everything: product, partnerships, customer support, sales, operations, you name it. It felt responsible, it felt committed, it felt like leadership. But I learned my mistake the hard way. Over time, I began to confront a harder question. If the business cannot function without me, are we truly scaling, or are we just increasing my workload? According to McKinsey, only about 1 in 10 companies globally sustain profitable growth over a decade. Startup Genome reports that premature scaling is one of the leading causes of startup failure. And World Bank enterprise data shows that only a small fraction of African firms expand meaningfully beyond their domestic markets. That is why today's conversation is very important. And I am honored to have a special guest, a very experienced guest today, Adeolu Lu, who has operated across 4 continents, led complex merger and acquisition transactions, served as managing director and CEO of Alliance Nigeria, and now provides governance oversight across multiple African markets. She has seen firsthand what differentiates companies that endure from those that stall. Her scale framework is not motivational theory. It is a structural response to a recurring leadership problem: ambition without architecture. Today, we will explore what it truly takes to move from founder energy to institutional strength, and what practical shifts CEOs must make to build enterprises that outlive them. Good morning. I'm excited to have you, Adeolu Lu. It's a pleasure.
Morning, Vice. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. So we'll get started with some personal story, not diving deep into the technical details. You began,
Okay.
before Scale became a framework, before Afro-optimism became a thesis, there was your journey. You are trained as an actuary in the US, worked across Germany, Turkey, Kenya, Nigeria, led M&A, and became MD CEO of Alliance Nigeria. Across those experiences, what fundamentally changed how you view running a business and leadership?
Yeah, thanks for the question. And I do get this question a lot, phrased in different ways, but really boiling down to the same thing, like, why the heck are you here? So I would actually like to start that journey even before I started my career, which was as the oldest of five children in the US, with a Nigerian professor as a father and a homemaker as a mom who unfortunately fell quite ill after the giving birth to the fifth of those children. So as the eldest daughter, it fell to me to provide that leadership at the home in the home, since my father was, of course, quite busy trying to make tenure as a professor in the U.S. If you know anything about the U.S. Professorial system, it can be a quite stressful time at those first years before you make tenure. So that's where the whole journey began, right? So if I look back and even with conversations with my siblings now, I can trace a lot of my leadership traits from that very formative time period, starting at age 10. So my youngest son is 10 right now, and I look at him and I think at that age, I was basically leading our household. And so then fast forward to when I was based in Germany and gave birth to my first child, who's now 12. And when I was pregnant, I had just stepped into a very senior, very business-driven role in Germany. Had moved to from the consulting side to a client. So that client was Allianz in Munich, and initially into HR because I had been an HR consultant, but then moved after that first year into the business side. Uh, Asked to drive strategy for one of the global business divisions across the world. And few months in, then realized I was pregnant. And one of the things that my boss at the time said was that you'll be amazed how becoming a parent will change your leadership style or impact your leadership style. And being a leader will impact how you parent. And I've really seen that in terms of, even just already the leadership that I took from being the eldest of five and then being a mom and bringing that same sort of family atmosphere into how I've led my teams and continue to lead my teams over the years. Although I know that I've posted recently that uh, your team is not a family, and I firmly believe that. But in the style that I lead my teams, it can be very much a family atmosphere, big sister, little mom, whatever, in how I lead my teams. And if you know African moms, doesn't mean that I'm soft. So let's set that aside. And then the last I guess milestone in my still very short journey. I still consider 25 years still a long ways to go from the end, is becoming a CEO myself. So it's one thing to lead from theory and to advise and consult. Once you actually step into the shoes of the people you're advising, then of course you bring a whole nother perspective and can understand things. There's a reason they say walk a mile in someone's shoes. So if you're walking in those shoes, then you really understand what CEOs and are going through, and founders, now that I'm a founder myself.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Very interesting how your journey have shown that really everything is possible with being a mom, working in global companies and shaping decisions and driving companies. I want to, pick up from the point you made. You made a post that company is not family and so on. So there's this debate where there's a lot of discussion. Oh, company is like a family and so on. But I also started learning the other uh, part of the debate, the other side of the debate from Reid Hoffman, the
Mm.
co-founder of Netflix, where he said that Netflix is not really about family. So picking on that and, you know, talking more about your experience whether it's in the boardroom or was it a crisis that occurred in one of your experiences, what fundamentally changed the way you see how we are supposed to lead and drive a company?
Yeah, I would say that, in addition to what I already mentioned, coming back to the continent, coming back to Africa, of course, has influenced my view of leadership and also my view of leadership in these environments, right? So emigrated or was taken from Nigeria at a very young age, and always with the view that I would come back. Like that's been very consistent in my entire personal and professional journey, is that I knew that I would come back. So that's been my North Star. And so now coming back via Nairobi. So Nairobi was my path back in, and already seeing very quickly how enthusiastic, despite all the issues and problems and challenges that we're surrounded by, but how enthusiastic the folks around me were about solving our problems and not particularly younger folks, not wanting to be reliant on the West or richer markets in terms of who's going to solve our issues. If we're not willing to put in that time to solve our issues, then how should we expect anyone else to? And what I saw though was the gap between desire and passion and the accessibility and knowledge, right? So you don't know what you don't know. So many folks, particularly if they had never worked in a corporate environment, didn't know what they didn't know. They had never run a P&L. They had never had to follow a process. They had never had an SOP hanging over them. They had never had to report to shareholders who may or may not be in the same market environment. Never had to lead a team. So having to learn all that from scratch. And it's not easy, right? And so I saw that the knowledge and the access and the exposure that I'd had didn't make me, let's make it clear, it doesn't make me better than anyone else, but it helps me to bring a different perspective to the table and to help people to bridge that gap between their passion and their energy and the global standards and expectations.
Thank you for that. And talking about, Africa and overseas, your own story is quite different from today's Jackpot. These why people are trying to move. You grew up you started your career back in the US and decided to come back. So while you've been here, in Africa and working with companies, helping them to create structure and so on, in addition to what you've mentioned, is there any repeatable pattern you've seen specifically in Nigeria where these companies or leaders still struggle to understand whether it's in the knowledge aspect or cultural shift or change?
Well, in addition to what I've said, let me think. So I think it's really about understanding the importance of two things, leadership and governance, in driving a company. That's the one. And then secondly, I would say it's about vision too, right? We talk about supporting companies to get them to that global scale. And that vision isn't always there, which it doesn't need to be. And not every company can rise to that level. But what I find is that uh, too many companies maybe are just focused on today's problem and not thinking about where they're headed and what they need to put into place to get to where they're headed. And unless we can get enough companies, even if it's 1 in 10, so 10% of those companies to rise to that stage and be able to compete with their with similar companies in Asia, in Europe, in the Americas, then we as a continent will never rise to that same level. So it's really not playing too small, if I can say it like that. I think too many of us are playing too small.
Great. And building on that, when it comes to startup founders specifically and not large scale companies, as they are building, we founders are really, especially in Africa, very energetic and they want to just keep building and probably don't pay attention to some of these structure and processes early. So this brings me to the work-life balance debate as
Mm.
well, where there's always this hustle and stuff like that, and there are quite prominent people like Elon Musk that advises or says you know, everyone knows Elon. He is like on five different companies uh, simultaneously and so on. And he says if you double the work you do, maybe you work 16 hours a week, even if you do the same thing with your competitor, it means you are going to do two times more than what they can do. So as a leverage. So what's your own experience when it comes to this work-life balance debate?
Yeah, so first I have to put it out there that I'm a recovering perfectionist. I say that, and a proud workaholic. But that being said, particularly as I near 50, I've understood more and more the importance of taking care of yourself, taking care of your health, taking care of your time. I'm still someone who wakes up at 4:30 to work out and get some stuff out of the day. But that being said, I've of course read all the same things that other people have read about how so many CEOs get up at 3 and sleep at midnight and sleep is the last thing on their mind. Uh, the good thing is that more and more science and research is being done around efficiency and importance of sleep and the fact that doubling your time doesn't mean you're doubling your outcome, right? And so it's really about focus and being very efficient in the time that you have, which is why there's also been additional research about how efficient working moms or part-time moms, working moms can be because they just know that I have 4 hours in the office and I'm going to get it done because I have other responsibilities. And so a lot of companies have been able to tap into that. Uh, so to go back to your question, I would say that it's not about the amount of time that you put into your business. Of course, you're going to put more time. I put more time into my business uh, than some of the people on my team. It is your baby, and as long as it's the time, and for me, the time is actually I love it. It's a benefit. Like I said, I'm a workaholic. I'm a proud workaholic, and so I don't see it as stress on my body. But I still take time out, and that's key to still take time out to take care of yourself. So what you need to do is to really focus and double down on what will actually move the needle. And I know we'll speak more about this, about moving from hero to architect, etc. But when you're at the beginning, like you said, Faiz, and trying to do everything, then of course you're going to be spending 16, 18, 25 hours on a job because you have to. You have to be the website developer and the client manager and deliver and do marketing and so, but once you start to actually focus on what you can actually will move the needle for the business that you can't um, hand off to someone else, then you'll find that even if you're spending the same time, it'll be quality time and you'll actually see the impact of the time you're putting in, which is then motivating.
Yeah, thanks. If I get it correctly, it's really not just about the time, but the quality time. And I recently saw this post from Paul Graham of Y Combinator, and he said
Mm,
startup founders that don't think about their ideas in the shower, then it's difficult for them to make it. So, but listening to you, it sounds like scale. Coincidentally, I mean the scale framework,
Okay.
not scaling a company is
Hmm.
less about effort and more about architecture. So can you walk us through the scale framework, your experiences that crystallized that?
Yeah. So yeah, so the scale framework is really the bedrock of the advisory that we provide and the thought leadership that we provide to our clients and to the ecosystem, and also including our best-selling book, which came out last year, where we actually step you through chapter by chapter through the scale framework, and starting with strategy. So strategize your vision, and that's looking at, like it says, being able to actually set a vision based on data, based on analyzing where you are as a company, where the market is and the market focus is, and what your competitors are doing, or your collaborators. I don't always consider competitors, but more collaborators. We're all trying to achieve the same thing at the end of the day. So really looking at that and really being able to set and define as a team your purpose, your vision, your tenets, your values for the company. So that's strategize your vision. That's the S. And then we move over to C, which we say champion excellence, and that's looking at your team and developing the type of culture, the type of values, and the type of team leadership that you need to drive that strategy. Because strategy without execution, right? They say is a dream. And who drives the strategy is not you by yourself; it's the people around you. So now you have your strategy, you champion excellence, but then at the end of the day, people are looking at you. So that's when you look to A, which is accelerate leadership. So how are you as a leader setting that standard of excellence within your organization? How are you speaking from the top? Leadership starts from the top. How are you speaking that through the organization? What messages are you putting out there? Not just by what you say, but also what you do. And then we move to governance. Governance is a topic where people don't usually like to talk about. It's not so sexy, or people think it's not so sexy. So leveraging governance for sustainable growth, that's the L. And really, that's really looking at the standards you have in place, the transparency you've put into place, the accountability, decision rights, even boards. So people think when governance, they think of board of directors, and they think that that's all governance is. There's governance is a whole slew of things. And really, at the end of the day, what governance does is it takes that strategy that's being executed by the people, but it's being led by yourself, but makes sure that it's actually sustainable and something and systems are being put into place so that it will run for the long run. And then lastly is the impact, because at the end of the day, what are we all doing this for? We're trying to leave a legacy. And that's financial legacy, that's societal legacy, impacting our communities. We talked about shared value, and in this limited time, I won't go into all that. But so expanding your impact. So that's the SCALE, strategize your vision, champion excellence, accelerate leadership, leverage governance, expand your impact. The scale framework.
The scale framework, indeed. I I happened to I was opportune to take that exercise to assess this flex self based on the scale framework, and it's quite insightful and eye-opening. But to deep a bit more, even though we have limited time, when we talk about strategy and clarity, you've mentioned vision, a number of times already, which means that vision is really important, and how the leader is able to communicate that vision, to define it, and so on is very important. From your experience, why do many founders struggle when it comes to that, creating vision and being able to communicate that clearly and to build on top of that, as a
Mhm.
CEO or founder, what what's the like a bullet point that they can use to be able to really understand why vision is important and drive the company towards that direction?
Yeah. So why do people struggle? I think that, and it's not just founders, but I think people, even when I have career discussions, particularly in my corporate life, struggle to figure out what their why is. Um, for me, I was blessed to know it from a very young age, as I mentioned. But I think particularly nowadays, with change happening so quickly, it can be difficult for people to look too long term, whether it be 5 years or 10 years. And that's sort of where you need to look when you're looking. You're not looking at the end of the year. That's not the vision. You're looking sort of that 5 to 10, even if you can get it to three, but 5 to 10 year time frame. And so I think it's difficult for people to get themselves out of their current space, particularly in this part of the world where there's so many challenges and so many pressures and so many expectations of us, and get us out of this space that we're in and actually think about why are we here? What are we trying to accomplish? But it's so critical because it's been shown time and time again that when we don't know our why, and when we're not able to communicate that why, and when we're not able to convince our team around us and get them on board and get them excited about this why, then there's really no loyalty to the organization. Then I'm just working a job, a 9 to 5, and when the next better job comes around, I'll hop off and go off to the next one. But when we can get people excited about why they're working for this organization, then it gets them also excited about, not just excited about why they're working for the organization, but also what they're doing supports that purpose. So that we all want purpose in our lives. That's what human nature is. We want to feel that there's a reason for us to be here, and that we're contribute to a purpose. And so the more purpose you can give me as an employee, the more excited I'll be, and maybe I will be thinking about the business in the shower, and not just when I'm at my desk.
Yeah. Thanks for that. And
There was a second
being,
piece. I think I missed it. There was a second part to your question.
or I mean, what like a silver bullet
Oh,
for.
so, oh, silver bullet. Okay. Well,
Mm,
okay. I don't know if there's silver bullets, but what I've started to think about is uh, when are the times when the best thoughts come into your mind? And Faiz, you mentioned the shower, and I think there's a reason why people get their best ideas in the shower, or on a long walk, or when they're working out, or so there's something linking these activities, and that's that you are sort of putting your brain on autopilot. And so your subconscious is able to process and think through things. And all of a sudden, something floats to the surface. And in today's world where we spend every free moment doing something, right? So we're waiting in a queue, and so we get on our phone, or we're have to pick up our child, and so then we try to check all our emails or pick up all those calls, those meetings that we missed. We never give ourselves time to just think. And
mm,
so the taking that time to just think and not be worrying about anything else, uh, I think that's really what will get you to be able to imagine and think through your vision. It's taking time to think. We don't take time to
mm.
think, especially nowadays. We're always doing something, me included. We're always doing something.
Interesting. And this point, reminds me of Adam Grant's concept of procrastination, where
Yeah.
he explained that procrastination can be good.
Hmm.
Not it's not really about, oh, when you are
Not really
procrastinating.
about all.
Sorry, there is some noise. Yeah. So sometimes if you are thinking and not doing,
Hmm.
it means it's not really procrastinating, but you are gathering all the thoughts, the ideas, and when you are ready to do the work, then you do it with high quality. So I
Yeah.
think I
I,
hope
I,
you.
I'm not there yet, but I've read of CEOs who will block, I mean, very senior, very big companies, who will block a day, on their calendar
Hmm.
where they will just go out into the wild or wherever and just roam and let their mind just wander.
I'm far from there too yet. So building on strategy and clarity, from what I understand, that's the foundation which will make alignment and leverage across the team and company even easier. But like you mentioned, sometimes you are faced with this harsh reality. In Nigeria, you are hit by different kind of things, economic challenges here and there, and stuff like that. So, but for founders to take advantage of alignment and leverage, especially when it comes to decision making. Recently, I saw your post where you mentioned that a company maybe is doing 1 million, $10 million, but even as low as $500, the founder has to sign off on that. So can you talk more about when should founders introduce independent oversight and really take advantage of alignment and leverage?
Yeah, and it's going to be different for every organization. So I wouldn't say there's a hard and fixed rule. I would say I would give some guidelines. And then of course every organization has to decide for themselves when it's the right point for them, and it's something that we as an organization are also going through. But I would say that there are three sort of buckets that I would put CEOs into. So I would use CEOs as a general term as opposed to only founders. So there's sort of the hero, which is typically the founder, the founder phase at the beginning, where you just out of necessity have to do and decide everything. Uh, but we understand that that's not sustainable. And so we want to move as quickly as we can to what I call the architect phase. And so I would say that, and I'm going to use US because I think we have probably people watching from different countries. But I would say 100,000 is the where you should start making that move, with a view to the 1 million benchmark, right? So at 100,000 US, that means you have a small team in place, you have subject matter experts in place. Maybe you even have one or two senior leaders, perhaps at least one, who can take some of that leadership burden from you. And if you wait until the 1 million trigger, which for many companies is like the next milestone, it's too late. Um, it's not too late. It's never too late. But that means that you've put a lot of stress on yourself as the sole leader, having to decide everything, and you probably have even slowed down your growth to get to that 1 million point. So I would say that start as soon as possible, but at a minimum, at 100,000, start putting in systems in place, getting the right people in place, thinking about decisions that you no longer need to take. And that's what I'm going through right now with my team in terms of okay, so I'm the founder, I'm the CEO, but we're a team of eight. There are people who have been brought in on specific subjects and are the experts, right? Should know more than me. And yes, perhaps when you start handing over these reins, you'll see that people are doing things the exact way that you would do it. Doesn't mean that it's wrong. It just means that it's different. And I like to tell people that no one's going to die based on, for most of us, no one's going to die based on any of our decisions. So a decision's made. perhaps if you really feel strongly that it should be different, then you rewind the decision and everyone learns from that. So that's what you're building to until you get to a point where you actually have an entire leadership team in place, which is probably at that 1 million. You have an entire leadership, and then you have to rely on your leadership team. Why did you bring those people in? You no longer want to be the smartest person in the room. You can do that for a while, but after a while, if you're not bringing in people who are smarter than you, at least in that particular expertise, then you'll never be able to build the institution that I think we're all trying or all want to build, which for me is about 100 million when you start becoming an institution builder and really looking to see how you can actually hand over your leadership responsibilities to the next person and so that your legacy can move on beyond you.
Interesting. Uh, think if I get your point correctly, one of the important point is about team, the right people, the getting the right leadership and so on. And the point you just made about getting people smarter than you. I think there's a very popular quote from Steve Jobs where he said they hire people, not to tell them what to do, but it should be
Just to
the
tell
other
you
way
what to do.
around.
Yeah.
But I
Mhm.
think culturally in Africa, specifically in Nigeria, where I know more, there many business owners or CEOs like to be like the boss. It's all
Mm.
about me. It's what I say. Nobody can immediately he arrives, Oga, and they are taking his bag for him and so on. So based on what you emphasize about team and to also align with the last point on the scale framework, enduring value. So how should Africans see us start thinking differently in building an institution and to feel comfortable to have very smart people around them and allow things to run, as an organization.
Well, I think it goes back to one of your previous questions about vision, right? So, what is it that you're visioning for your company? If this is going to stay as a family business that you don't mind is going to die once you die, then certainly you could run it in that sort of oh God mentality. But if you're really trying to build something that will survive your lifetime and many lifetimes past, then you have to let go. It's just something that you and so looking at your vision, which is strategy, but also looking at your leadership, which is the A part of skill, right? So you have to work on yourself. None of us are perfect. We all have ego. But so if you have set a certain vision for your company, for your organization, then what are you doing to work on yourself so that you can set your ego aside to actually hire the right people? Because the right people in place, we won't get there. But that people starts with us. We're a person ourselves. So what are we doing to work on ourselves first before we think about others?
Yeah, and into your point about building maybe a company that lasts outlives you for 100 years and so on. Ca-
If I could add to this before you move on, I mean that's why I so love the recent announcement about Dangote, right? And setting aside whatever personal feelings might have, I know that that's there are pros and cons, or people for and against, but I love the fact that has obviously been thinking about his legacy and about succession and bringing his daughters in from the beginning and now having them rise to very senior executive positions leading his business because he knows he won't be around forever. So the same way
Hmm.
that Aliko Dangote has become a household name is the same way he wants his daughters Halima, Fatima, and Maria to also become household names after he's no longer here. And I think that's just such a wonderful example of someone who has really been thinking that it's not enough for me to be the richest Black person in the world. I want to leave something behind me that will survive long after I'm gone.
Yeah, and you've answered my next question about succession, and which is really important to build lasting companies. And Jim Collins, I think in his book, Good to Great, emphasized that a lot. And he says greatest leaders build clock towers and not just tell time. So, but to build
An
on
interesting
that,
quote.
yeah, it's from the insights I get from you, it's not really about, it's not more like I'll say inheritance of wealth and so on. There has to be, some kind of strong leadership among the team and so on, and intentionally plan for that succession. So, what is there any structural indicator that show maturity, around I would say the team organization for succession based on your experience?
Yeah, so I like to tell people or ask CEOs, if you left the company for 8 weeks, what would happen? And I think that tells you what you need to where your gaps are. Um, so my goal as a CEO, as a founder, is that I will be able to take 8 weeks, maybe not altogether, but 8 weeks of holiday. Right now, I'm about 2 to 3, maybe 4 weeks, but 8 weeks of holiday, and I know that everything will continue to run. So I think that's the first step in succession planning is, are you able to stay away from the business? Or is this just a cage that is holding you 24/7, 365?
Yeah. That this is a perfect example or yardstick to use. And I would say for me, yeah, I've been through this. I really understand what it means. But fortunately, I think yeah, I'm a little beyond that. I can maybe take 1 to 2 weeks break. And at FlexiServe, people always say, "Have you ever taken a vacation at all?" But I think for me, it's not really. Now we have structure. I don't take all decisions and so on.
Mhm.
But that I don't know. Maybe is it the passion and so on. And of course with the mobile phones of today, even if you're on vacation, you see notifications and stuff like that. But I really like that yardstick 8 weeks. I think I'll give it a try.
This is a concrete goal that we can all work to towards.
Yeah. So as we begin to round up, for with all this insight and so on, there's a lot to unpack. I know it's a limited time, but in terms of getting started to scale using scale framework, it was the first structural audit founders should think about.
So, in addition to that question about how long can you step away from the business, so a concrete tool that we like to use with the ecosystem is our scale scorecard, which I saw a question, a comment pop up if there was a sort of where someone could find a framework. So it's 32 questions that basically looks at the 5 areas of the scale framework, and at the end of the day gives you a score and gives you suggestions as to how you can fill those gaps. So that's the first step. And then as a concrete next step after you, I mean, it's nice to take a quiz, but then what do you do to execute on those recommendations is choose one thing. Choose one place as a founder, as a CEO, where you can remove the dependency from yourself. So whether it's you document a certain process so that someone else can follow the process without you having to handhold them, whether it's you delegate a certain task that you've been doing, that doesn't excite you. So any task that doesn't excite you should be delegated to someone else. Or it's putting a system in place. For example, a decision-making system that if you are a $10 million company, that you're not making $500 approval decisions. So just one, I talk about focus. Just choose one thing in the next 30 days that you can hand off to someone else and to remove that dependency from you as a CEO.
Yeah, interesting. So focus, choose one thing and remove that
I'm not asking you
depend.
to give everything away, but choose one.
Yeah,
There must be something that you can give away.
yeah. To remove that dependency, then delegation, is also important from that point, and think of what system to put in place to continue to automate. So as a final reflection before we go into Q&A and also some more information about how to get started with scale and distinction, if you could give one instruction to every ambitious African founder about scale, what will it be?
Yeah, I would say that it starts small. Where you can't become a 100 million or 100 billion organization, which I think is Dangote's next goal, overnight. Uh, what can you change today to get you to where you want to be? It's a domino effect for a reason, right? They say if you knock over one domino and then the next domino is 50% higher, it won't take that many dominoes before you can reach the moon. So what is one step you can take today so that you can knock over that first domino?
Yeah, thank you for that. So I would quickly share my screen to, yeah, so I'm sure there's a lot to unpack. You've heard Adeolu Lu share a lot of insight and experience. And if you want to just get started with scale, assess where you are today, there's a very interesting scorecard that Adeolu has already mentioned. You can scan the QR code here or visit scorecard.theconsulting.com/the scale to just assess yourself and get started. It's very important, especially for based on all the data about African companies, we start this mindset and really scale. And quickly, I'll use the opportunity to introduce Distinction, which is our AI-powered teaching and learning platform that empowers creators to turn any syllables into a full course, including notes, videos, flashcards, and quizzes in minutes, and gives every student an AI agent that personalizes their learning. In the beginning, Adeolu talked about knowledge, why knowledge is important, and that's what distinction is all about, giving you that opportunity to learn. And we are working with Zach Consulting to host interesting courses around scale to help us unpack the insights we've got today. So, like I said, try it out. You can create your courses and access existing courses on Distinction in few minutes. You can start as a creator on the platform by visiting distinction.app/creators or scan the QR code on the screen to take you there and get started. You also have thousands of courses already on the Distinction platform, from business to artificial intelligence, to communication, and more. Visit distinction.app/learners to also get started, or scan the QR code on the screen to also uh, access these courses. So we've seen some interesting question already. I think on the chat, maybe we start with some of them, and if time permits, we can get more people to come on board. Uh, okay, this one says re-itemize the scale, please.
Okay. So S is strategize your vision. C is champion excellence. A is accelerate leadership. L, leverage governance. And E, expand your impact. And that's all available. If you scan that QR code, you'll see those 5 points in the scorecard. And then it's documented in much more detail in our book, Afro Optimism Unleashed, which you can find either on Amazon or even here in Nigeria. And I'm just trying to remember the name of the bookstore, but it'll come back to me, the name of the bookstore where you can find it in Nigeria as well.
Yeah, and this webinar is recorded. We'll make it available to everyone that have registered, and you can get more information. But
Roving Heights bookstore, Roving Heights, yes.
okay, yeah. Uh, so this questions in many cases, one can draw some parallels between running a business and working in a business. In line with this, founders and leaders inspire employees to be leaders as well. How can such aspiring leaders apply scale to their career? Scale framework.
I like that question. Thank you, Khalil. So definitely you can apply it to your career, I would say, because one of the things, as I mentioned before, that when I speak to aspiring leaders or people about their careers, is to set a vision for their life. So a lot of the questions that people ask me about what should I do next, should I leave this company, should I take this job, etc. My question back to them is always, well, but what are you trying to achieve in your life? And only if you know what you're trying to achieve can you be able to tell whether this is the right step or not for you. So that's that whole strategy, setting your vision. Then, of course, champion excellence for yourself. So always delivering excellence. And we're very big at Zaire about delivering excellence and always being at the top of our game. We can't advise others about excellence if we ourselves are not delivering excellence within our organizations. Leadership, you can build yourself as a leader. Everyone's a CEO of their own life. So, what are you doing to build those leadership capabilities in wherever that space is? Governance, accountability, transparency, ethics. That's something, of course, we have. We can develop as a person, and of course, our own impact in the space that we're in. So yes, I would say you can definitely the scale framework is also relevant to individuals, not just companies.
Great. And there's another very interesting one here. Is vision only the responsibility of the founder? And maybe to add to that, I think vision and decision, how to differentiate the two, because they say if you don't want to take a decision, form a committee. And
Yeah, I've heard that. Yes, yes.
And in Nigerian context, especially maybe in the public sector, they say when they set up a committee, then you know that maybe your proposal is not they are not interested in it. So, but anyway, yeah, is vision only the responsibility of the founder?
Yes and no. That's my answer. I would say that it's the founder, the CEO's responsibility to set and communicate the vision, but it's everyone's responsibility to sign on and drive that vision. The CEO can't drive the vision alone. They can only drive it with the support of everyone around them. But it's my responsibility, the CEO, to communicate that vision in a way that captures your heart so that you will help me to drive it.
Yeah, thanks for that. And Bakar's asking thing around working with how can I manage investors? And he added, what tough conversations should founders have with investors before letting them invest. I think this probably still around governance and so on. Maybe he's having there's some good deal around, but he's thinking about it.
And I love Abubakar that you have that right mindset because what I found too many times, and this related to one of the questions you asked previously, Faiz, is that many times companies will change and shift their focus and their organization to suit the need of the investor, which can become very wishy-washy. And I've seen too many companies lose their way because they're trying to fit themselves in the investor's box rather than looking for investors who are aligned with your own vision, right? And so those are the tough conversations. It's not a beauty parade. You're not showing yourself off to them only. But it's sort of a mating ritual. Both sides have to agree. Both sides have to think, well, this is the person for me. This is the company for me. This is the investor for me. And I think too many companies don't have that tough discussion with the investor to challenge them on what they can bring to the table because they have to bring something to the table too, right?
Yeah, very interesting discussion. Uh, Ahmad Rajizan, before we come to Ahmad, let me read this question from Bulama. Have you come across situation where a founder has put systems in place but still finds it hard to turn off even though their team is running well? Is it passion or something more deeply emotional? And do you have any process for founders in this situation to turn off or back off for those processes they have systemized?
Yeah, for sure. Of course, of course. When you consider the company your baby, just like with your own children, it's going to be difficult to let go. So that's then coming back to yourself. What are you doing to work on yourself to be able to actually trust your team to do what you've asked them to do? And it won't be easy. And it probably shouldn't be easy, or else maybe you don't really care about the company. But it's just a step-by-step process that we all have to go through, that I myself have to go through as well.
Yeah, very well said. Ahmad,
Okay, hi Faiz. Good afternoon. Hi, Adeolu Lu. Good afternoon. Confirm you can hear me?
we
Yes, go
can.
ahead.
I didn't want to speak in this session because I've spoken in about two or three different sessions. So, but but then as the conversation was ongoing, I felt an itch that I needed to ask this question. So I have say two questions, or it's a single question that has two branches. One is on multi-founder organization. So it's an experience that I want to share, not in my organization, in some organization that I saw recently. How do you manage different opinions? So different visions in a multi-founder organization. So there's this organization that I know the founders, two founders at the beginning when they were very small, they had the same vision to be in business, to acquire customers and to get some revenue. But as they grew, the vision kind of became different for both founders. One was very much pro scale, and the other one was more pro status quo. And that created a huge gap in administration and governance of the organization. So how do you at the beginning, while getting into a partnership, a multi-founder partnership to create a company, how do you build the company with such a future in mind? That's one. And then second question is for single founder organizations, many times we start small businesses to escape our 9 to 5, and then you call it a small business, and then that smallness, that small keyword infests your thinking. So much so that 3, 4, 5, 6 years, you're still seeing yourself as a small business. When do you begin seeing yourself as the big business that you want to be, or as the big business that you are? Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Ahmed. Those are very good questions. I like both of them. Yeah, the whole co-founder. I've seen so many organizations fail, I think primarily for two reasons. One, lack of good governance, and two, co-founder conflict. A co-founder relationship is a relationship like any other. And so when that relationship sours, then it's probably best that the two or multiple founders go their own ways. The trying to consolidate different visions really has to be the responsibility of the founders themselves. Yes, of course, a coach can be brought in, a facilitator can come in, sort of like a marriage counselor, trying to alleviate this, the solution. But also in marriage counseling, it's the two people themselves who have to, at the end of the day, deal with the problem. And if they're not able to deal with the problem, which in this case is a misalignment of vision, then I think it's the best for the organization that one of them steps away, whichever is the right one. And so it's again then having the right governance structures to anticipate that problem from the beginning, that potential problem from the beginning, so that legally that you're able to do that in a good way. The second question around thinking of ourselves as big businesses, this is what I had sort of alluded to in the beginning, where I talked about too many of us are playing too small. And I would actually prefer a company to think of themselves as a big business right from the beginning, right from the get-go. Particularly in 2026, where with AI and all these tools, we can play much bigger than our size so easily. I think the definition of a multinational, a global multinational, is going to shift because a team of 12, some people are even debating that a team of one can become a unicorn, right? And have a billion-dollar valuation, which I don't think is the epitome of success, but can play big is my point. So I would encourage us to think of ourselves as big, even before we perhaps financially are seen as big. And that means putting the
Mm.
right people, systems, and structures in place as soon as possible.
And thank you for that. I think the discussion is very interesting and many more questions coming. Well, I think we'll try to round up in the next 2, 3 minutes.
Okay, follow your
And
lead.
yeah, and this another interesting one from Nasir. How do you safely and properly help introduce governance as a non-active co-founder where the company has been running without governance?
That is difficult. It really depends what your rights and what your rights are in the company. A non-active co-founder, I guess, was typically called a silent partner in the past. I'm assuming this is the kind of setup you mean. So silent partner, they typically brought in for the financing piece, and then the operational and execution is left to the other partner. So as a silent partner, you're meant to stay silent. But of course, you don't want to be a party to something that you don't feel, from a moral standpoint, fits with your values. So I think that that's where you come in. You come in with the financial incentive, saying that these are the concerns you have. If we can't find a way to resolve those concerns, then you'll have to step away and agree to disagree. And
Thank you
perhaps
for
that
that.
financial incentive might be enough to get people on the right track.
Yeah. And second to the last, what are potential positive and negative impacts of employing family members or friends within a company?
So my dad told me from a very young age, don't mix friendship with money. So for example, he said he would never sell a used car to a friend or family member, because that's just a
Mm.
problem that will never go away. So I would say similarly, be very careful. It's not impossible, but be very, very careful to bring family or friends into a company, because, like I said, a company is not a family. It's a team. And how do we assess teams? We assess teams based on their performance, purely on their performance. Of course, there's collaboration, everything you support, etc. But if you look at your favorite football team, favorite sport team, if someone is messing up, they're traded away. And that can be a very difficult discussion with a family member. How do you tell your sibling that, sorry, you're not meeting the grade, you have to leave?
Yeah.
So I think you need to think first, would you be willing to have that conversation if the time would come? If you're not willing to have that conversation, don't hire them.
Mm. Definitely a difficult one. Then the last question, I think an interesting one as well. I like the thought about the scale model already, and he's asking how can they use it to come up with KPIs for their startup?
So the short answer is yes, you can use it. And I think it would take too long to go into how you would well, how maybe is easier, but which KPIs that would take too long in this session. But how you would use it is to really look at each of the five pillars, uh, see where your so assess what your gap is, and then based on that gap, then assign KPIs to be able to close those gaps. And of course, the KPI has to be relevant to the person who's driving that KPI. So if, for example, the KPI might be develop a valuation. So develop a qualified, a formalized valuation for the company. I think your social media manager will have a different KPI than your finance manager might have. So make sure that the KPI is also relevant to the roles and responsibilities of the person, but also ensure that each person can see how their role fits into the company's strategy and their strategic KPIs.
Wow, a lot, a lot of insight and knowledge in about an hour. It's really a very interesting and remarkable discussion. Thank you very much, Adeolu, for your time in this weekend, and thank you also everyone that uh, found the time to come here during this weekend when you're supposed to be resting and enjoying. But it was really exciting. I feel we'll definitely have a part two because the interest is quite high. Thank you very much. It's really a pleasure.
Thanks for having me. Happy weekend, everyone.